Well, my next guest is Reverend Dr. Stacey Edwards-Dunn, an ordained minister, a fertility coach, a counselor, and a writer. She's also the executive minister of community engagement and transformation at Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago. And she is the founder of a national organization, Fertility for Colored Girls. Reverend Stacey did 7 cycles of IVF before getting pregnant with her daughter in 2014. And she's here today to talk with us about her infertility journey and her organization, Fertility for Colored Girls. Reverend Stacey, welcome to See Hear Love.
Thank you so much, Melinda, for having me. I am honored to be here today.
Well, Reverend Stacey, let's start off with your story and the struggle, the process, so we can get to know you a little bit more through this journey.
Well, thank you again. Well, my story simply begins, I think, as a child. All my life since I was a little girl, I've always known that I wanted to be a mother. That was at the core and the crux of who I am. Many of my girlfriends would even say that I was the mother of, the girlfriends of the pack. And so, but all my life, that is something that I wanted, while at the same time, all my life, I also, wanted to be able to establish my career, of course, be a good citizen, to get married as well. And so I did all of that. And I did all of that as I was told to do by my parents, right? Mm-hmm. In order, right? Make sure you go to school, make sure you get a good education, you get a good job, and you get a husband before you have children. And don't get pregnant while you're a teenager. All of that, I heard and I sought to do. And so, and I, of course, I went to school. I put family building on the back burner so that I could go to school, receive multiple degrees, and even have a change in career, because my thought was that I was going to be a physician, but I ended up accepting my call into ministry. And so, again, I forged forward in my education, establishing my career, ended up becoming a minister, accepted my call into ministry, and started working in the ministry in 2002. And so, at the age of 37, I ended up getting married, and my husband and I made the decision to forge forward to have a family because, of course, I wasn't getting any younger. He had children. We didn't have children together, but we forged forward. So we forged forward, go see the doctor, and we would find out that we would receive a diagnosis of infertility, and a diagnosis that I would have never thought that I would have been, I would have received. Why? Because in my mind and in my community, the myth is that Black women were hyperfertile. So this idea of infertility would not pertain to me, because as a Black woman, I thought when I was ready to have a baby, I would be able to have a baby, even just at looking at my husband, because I was a Black woman, and that's what women are supposed to do. But little did I know that infertility was a diagnosis that Black women were dealing with. Although it is a taboo topic in our community, it's something that we talked about in my home, or even amongst my girlfriends, because again, that was not a topic Black women were talking about. We weren't talking about miscarriages. It wasn't a conversation, again, about people not having children. If somebody wasn't able to have children, nobody really questioned that. Again, that was not a topic. But little did I know, in 2007, I would find out that would be my plight. And so it was a very lonely place to be in, because again, no one was talking about it. And when we first went to the doctor and to the fertility doctor, and they made the diagnosis and told us what our solution would be, there was a $25,000 price tag attached to the solution for us to become parents. And so, we walked out of the clinic like, we don't have $25,000 just sitting in our account. Nor did, at that point, insurance was not covering our treatment. And so, so you have, of course, this myth that we had to deconstruct, and then we had this $25,000 price tag that we were looking at. All of that as we began to forge forward to build our family. And so as we continued, my husband and I continue to have some conversation. One of the things that we, and also to go in prayer about, we just began to, to start doing research. And so I was like, okay, what would be a better option as far as financially? So the first thing that we did, Melinda, was that we made the decision to look out of the country. And so we had conversations with a fertility clinic in Africa, also in concert with our doctor here, as well as in Barbados. And so, fast forward, after some conversation, much prayer, and we made a decision to go to Barbados for our first 2 cycles. Why? Because, we trusted them. We had some conversation with them, other people who had been there. It was also much cheaper to go there, $7,500.
Oh, wow.
$25,000 price tag. And we could still be on vacation and relax as well as go through the cycle. We weren't lucky enough to get pregnant there, but we trusted them. We felt like they did do their very best. And so then we would come back to Chicago and see our first doctor in Chicago, pay fully out of pocket by God's grace.
Wow.
We were given the resources. And then we would not get pregnant on the 3rd cycle. We then transfer to our next doctor. And one of the things that we would find out as we begin to go to cycle 4 and 5 is that I was experiencing some immune issues. And I would find out in the midst of that I had what some doctors believe in, some doctors don't, some natural killer cells. My immune system was really up in arms, but I would ultimately find out that I had lupus. And so I had to begin to get my body, centered and settled and kind of reset. And so I would go through 2 cycles with this new doctor, and then I would transfer to another doctor. And so that was my last and final doctor. Her name is Dr. Elena Trukacheva. I have no problem saying who she is. I think she's one of the best doctors in the country. And I was actually referred to her by somebody that said, if anybody can figure your situation out, Dr. Trukacheva can. And when I made it to Dr. Trukacheva, she said, we got to do some more exploratory work and figure out what's going on, because it's got to be a reason why you haven't been able to get pregnant. And so she did. And Melinda, one of the things that she found out was that I had 1 fallopian tube, and I also had what was called a unicornate uterus, that the technicians in the very beginning, when I went to go get my uterus checked and to find out about if my fallopian tubes was open, no one told me in 2007.
Wow.
And it would not be until 2012 that a doctor would, really sit down and do, do the work with me and say, and this could have been impacting all of these first 5 IVFs all along.
Unbelievable, Reverend Stacey. I want to ask you this. I mean, the journey, wow. How were you doing? Like you said earlier that there's a lot of loneliness, and that, Black women don't talk about this. You're supposed to that's the expectation. What are you internalizing, Reverend Stacey, through this about yourself, you and your husband, the secrecy and shame? What was that like for you?
It was challenging because, again, I didn't have anybody to really talk to about it. And I think also I always share with everyone that not only am I a Black woman, I'm Black, I'm woman, and then I was clergy. And I felt that I was able to pray for everyone else to be successful, but in my own life, I was not able to be successful. And, it's a lot, because even being a clergy woman and also a young woman, it's a very lonely experience as well, because, even this profession and being clergy, it is still, many people still recognize it as being, predominantly these roles held by men. And so all of that, I was dealing with during that time. And I wasn't, as a part, part of the African-American culture is that we don't tell people our business. And so I didn't want people to know that part of my business.
Right.
And so I did live in shame until I could find, some people to have the conversation with. And one of the things that happened was that, again, you would go into fertility clinics and there would be few people that looked like me, or, or women of color in a fertility clinic. Again, I had very few girlfriends that had experienced this. And I would find out that more had experienced it than I knew, but they weren't talking about it. And even as a pastor, one of the things that began to happen, especially probably around my 5th cycle, is that God would begin to send women and couples to my office for counseling, for counseling around infertility, who had no idea that I was struggling. And so as a result, I was able to share my story with them, which allowed them to be more comfortable also in sharing their story. But one of the things I found out, Melinda, as a result of my experiences, the shame, the frustration, the loneliness, and also these encounters, I found that there was no place for Black women and couples and other women of color to go to share their unique experiences about their infertility, because we do have some very unique experience. Yes, men, women of all ethnicities struggle with infertility, but there are some unique experiences for women of color, and particularly for Black women or women and men who have been kissed by nature's son. And so those unique experiences, I needed a place to be able to go talk to with people that got it, that understood, that were not going to critique me. And so as a result of those encounters, those experiences, and knowing that there was a void, God led me to start Fertility for Colored Girls.
Unbelievable. And so you're on what cycle when you got pregnant? Because it wasn't just like an overnight. This was cycle after cycle after cycle, and deep disappointment, right? Reverend Stacey, like,
yes, it was a lot of deep disappointment, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of grief, because a lot of infertility is about grief, grieving your dreams, grieving unsuccessful cycles, grieving time. Just, it's a lot of grief, grieving this dream of a child and children. It was a lot of grief. I cried a many a tears, but I kept pushing through it, and so, in my 6th cycle, what happened was this, and this is when I actually, right after I connected with Dr. Truckacheva, and she personalized my protocol. I would get my first positive pregnancy test, but then I would find out that it did not work. It was totally devastating. But in the midst of that time, which was 2012, was my 6th cycle, that's when God led me to start Fertility for Colored Girls. And I always tell people about in March of 2013, and I always tell people that Fertility for Colored Girls was the first baby that I was called to give birth to.
Yeah.
My infertility journey was something bigger than myself. And it needed to, my journey was supposed to not only to help me to grow and prepare for the gifts that God has for me, but to ultimately to help to midwife other women and couples in this journey so that they could build their families. And so in March of 2013, I would start Fertility for Colored Girls. And not too long after that, my husband and I made the decision to forge forward with adoption. Well, we didn't move forward with it because both of us, after we had put a down payment down to start the process, had meetings with the adoption agency, and he came back and said, let's pause on the adoption. He says, I think we need to do one more cycle. He said, because I think if we do one more cycle, it's going to work. I was like,
wow.
Out of pocket. He was like, I'm not worried about it. Let's forward, right? And so in December of 2013, a few months after Fertility for Colored Girls was started, and we had also at that time in November of 2013 launched our 2nd location of Fertility for Colored Girls. In December, I moved forward with the 7th cycle of in vitro. On January 2nd of 2014, I would find out that I was pregnant with our daughter, who is now 6 years old.
Oh, like teary.
And it was like the world stopped. I mean, my dog stopped in his tracks. I mean, everything stopped on the day that we got our call. And Melinda was so beautiful because
Wow.
it wasn't just one person calling me to tell me that I was pregnant. It was an office of people who were standing there to let me know that we were pregnant and how excited they were to let us know that we were finally successful, and to let us know that they prayed over our embryos because they wanted us to be parents just as much as we did. And so it was really, when I tell you, I know it was nothing but God's grace and the prayers and the of so many people that were praying for us that had no idea, that I had no idea about, that I believe that Shiloh Lupita Iman Dunn is here today.
Beautiful. You know, Reverend Stacey, what I love about your story is that you founded the organization, so Fertility for Colored Girls, without the expectation that you were going to get pregnant. You didn't know, but within this journey, wilderness, struggle, heartache, disappointment, this is what we need to hear. You decided to form this organization to help other African American women and girls. Like, that's huge. And I think why it's because for our viewers and listeners, you know, we talk a lot about this on our show, Reverend Stacey, is that, you know, there's choices we make. And sometimes people are like, I cannot make a good choice after this. I'm angry. I just can't do it. My life, you know, is not the way that I wanted. And I think in the decision that you made to do this is what we need to hear. How did you, I think that that's the question, because people are like, but you're in the midst of this struggle and pain and journey, but you then say, no, I'm going to help. How do you do that? What I know the motivation, but what does it take to choose that even in the midst of great struggle and strife?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of things. I think one is that, yes, I wasn't a parent yet, but I knew I would be a parent somehow in some way. And that also, I think in the midst of that season, another thing that happened is that when I tell you, I felt like I was being stalked to do this work. It wouldn't let me go, right? And so I had to surrender to it, because it, in a sense, I think that what helped me to embrace it was, I also understand that to be fertile is more than to give birth out the womb, right? Wow. To be fertile is a lifestyle. It is a condition of being. And right, so I had to give life to this organization so that life would come forth.
Oh, I got chills. Right? Yes, so yeah.
I think that for me, that's what I understand. You know, all my life, that's been who I am. And so, and I understood even in those moments, again, as I stated earlier, that in as much as I was in pain and as much as I was going through, my going through was not just for me. It was a community of people that were attached to me, that ultimately their lives would indeed be impacted because of the work that I had been called to do. See, when you understand something is a calling, you cannot say no to it.
Yes.
Because even with parenting, the reality is that parenting children is a calling. You know, it is a calling. You know, it's an assignment. You know, and so I had to be in line with all of the universe. You know what I mean? Because that's what I think. It was an alignment, right? And so I had to get in line with the universe and all that God was calling me to do, so that I could ultimately bring life and be life, which I was created to be. And I couldn't even parent Shiloh until I ultimately understood that I was called to be life and to exhibit life and to bring life. And so I think that that's what we have to understand, is that we have to be a beacon of hope in the midst of our pain, even in the midst of our trials, because it's our trials that bring forth testimony. It's our pain that brings forth possibility in our lives. And so and it's the frustrations that grow our faith and develop our character so that we can step into whatever it is that God has created for us in our lives. And so I, for me, that is how I was able to step in and to do it. So understand, Melinda, it wasn't easy because I still didn't want people to know my business. Well, God said, you know, I felt like God was telling me that you got to do this work. People have to know the story because your story will be powerful and it will impact others' lives. Because stories heal, stories empower, and stories change lives. And so as a result of me sharing my story, I have been able, you know, with the organization and the volunteers that serve to help others. So I don't know, hopefully that answers.
No, that was exactly what I wanted to hear. It's so empowering. I think, you know, as we look as, you know, young women and women who are mentoring and, you know, see her love itself, it's about, you know, the choice for women. My hope is that women will make these choices, will see beyond themselves, realize that going through hard things gives us empathy and understanding to then be able to support and care and love those around us. And I love story. I'm a storyteller, Reverend Stacey, and that is the power of story. I always say we share our story so others do not feel alone, that others find hope and healing and freedom and transformation through Jesus. So that is amazing. Tell me about Shiloh. What a celebration of this life.
Yes.
What is she like?
Shiloh is brilliant. She's beautiful. She is fierce. She's funny. She is discerning. She is so smart. She loves God. And Shiloh has a huge purpose and assignment on her life. She's a critical thinker. She's just a very special child. And I feel honored to be her parent. And I know that the 7 years of infertility and just all my life experiences, I believe that God used them to prepare me to be the mother that God has called me to be for her. I believe that she would have came in 2007, I wouldn't have been ready for her, you know, but I had to be prepared for, you know, all that she embodies, because she's going to change the world. She is. Her name means, Shiloh means the one sent by God. Her middle name, Lupita, means protector of people, and Iman means faith. And so she is already living that out. You know, and everything that has been, you know, that God deposited in her, she is going to certainly need to be a Black woman in this world, and to do the work that has been assigned her hearts and her heart, her hand, and her feet, and her voice in the future. But she's a beautiful gift. She wears glasses. She just has she's very independent, has her own, you know, she is something else. Let me just say that.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Well, we celebrate with you and Shiloh. Reverend Stacey, 2 more questions I have. So how do we, you know, as far as, you know, supporting this organization, but, you know, for African-American women, for, you know, Black women in Canada and around the world that still live in shame and stigma, you know, culturally and societally, and for family, what's your encouragement to those women who are struggling now, who are keeping it hidden or secret? What's your advice and encouragement to them?
Well, first of all, Melinda, I want the women to know that they are not alone. The reality is that this is a huge issue. Infertility is a giant in the world and in the community. Amongst the 7.3 million women and couples who are struggling with infertility, Black women and couples are struggling at 2 times the rate as our Caucasian brothers and sisters. That's a huge issue. We're struggling. You know, we are living in shame. We are not accessing care, and we're not accessing till later. We are still believing the hype and the myths that we are hyper-fertile. And again, like you said, we're living in a lot of shame and silence. I want the women to know you are not alone. You know, number one, there are so many women who are here to support you, who have not walked in your shoes, but know what you have experienced and have their own experiences that can support you. I want them to be empowered, right? I want them to be empowered to take charge of their reproductive health and their fertility. There is no time to wait, you know, not that I'm pressuring them, but there's no time to wait, right? Because our bodies, we're not fertile all our lives. And so I want to encourage them to see a good reproductive endocrinologist that will care for them rightly. And, you know, there's organizations such as Fertility for Colored Girls who can talk with them and give them the tools for their toolbox so that when they go in to see these doctors, they know the right questions to ask and what they need to do in order to advocate for themselves. I want them to know that they should be open because there are multiple options and paths to become a parent. I know most of us have been educated or taught that there's only one way for the most part to become parents outside of adoption. But I want them to know that the goal is to become a parent and there are multiple paths to parenthood. And everyone's path to parenthood is different, but it's not deficient. And no matter how they arrive to the goal of parenthood, they will not love the child any less, but know that they have options, right? And so for me, that becomes very, very important that Black women in couples or women who have been kissed by nature's son, whether in Chicago or in Canada and Toronto, the reality is that you have options. You have options to build your family, be open to them. For younger women who are watching or who have their ears open, I say again, take charge of your reproductive health. Find out your fertility status. Go see your doctor. Find out about your ovarian reserve. Make sure that both your fallopian tubes are open. Make sure your uterine cavity is clear. Make sure that you're eating the right foods to prepare your body so that when you are ready to become a parent, you will be ready, mind, body, and spirit. Consider cryopreservation. Find out, educate yourself, because freezing your eggs is insurance for you. It's insurance. It's an investment, but it's insurance so that you don't have to feel rushed, but that you will have eggs so that when you are ready to become a parent, you can forge forward in your journey. And so, so I think I would tell, women and couples who are watching those things and to hold on to hope. There is hope. And there's hope because you have options. There's hope because there's other people who are waiting to hold up your arms that are not going to judge you, not going to critique you, but going to listen and meet you right where you are to walk with you on your journey.
I love that. You answered my other, my second question, Reverend Stacey, because I was going to say, for those that the outcome is not what they wanted, and it's not have prayed to God or have done everything they can, and it's just not happening. I think you answered that because I think hope is really key in this. Hope, and I like what you said. I said, there are different ways to be a parent. Like for me personally, I'm a bonus mom to my husband's two kids, Nathan and Sophie. And, my whole journey was I didn't know if I wanted kids, I was going to have kids. And then when we got married, I had these bonus children. And it's a beautiful blended family, chaotic mess of love and goodness, right? And so I was then, gifted with this beautiful family. And I think that's right. I think what you said is, family and parenting looks different.
That's right.
And it can look different.
Exactly. And they just have to, again, they have to be open. And it may not always happen in the way that you want. We oftentimes have plans, but oftentimes, God's plans are often different for us. And so for us to step back and take your glasses off, clean them so that you can have a new perspective and see, okay, God, show me what the plan is. Yeah. What is my family supposed to look like in your eyes? Show me the path. that I am supposed to walk down. Show me when to stop treatment if I'm supposed to stop treatment, but show me what it is that you are calling me to do. So whether that's, naturally, whether that's IVF, IUI, whether that's donor eggs, donor sperm, or embryo donation, or adoption, or foster to adopt, or gestational carrier, or, or whatever it may be. And so show me and allow me to be open to what that is, because still at the end of the day, it may be different, but it won't be deficient in the child and the family that I will have. The reality is I won't love them to the less. I will love them with all the love, because at the end of the day, I want to be a parent.
Yes.
And I want to be a steward of the child and the gifts that that I have been given.
Wow. Reverend Dr. Stacey Edwards-Dunn, amazing, amazing journey for you, your story. I could listen to you for hours. So thankful for the work that you're doing. Again, we celebrate with you with Shiloh, and we just thank you for your voice and presence and courage and resilience and faithfulness to God's calling on your life. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless you.